What's up, y'all? Basketball fans. Appreciate you guys for coming back in, chiming back in with us. What you are watching, as you know, unless you've been living under a rock, Tate's Take. As you know, it's where basketball lives. So, um, really appreciative that all you guys can join me here on today. Remember to go and subscribe anywhere that you find your favorite podcast: iTunes, Google Podcasts, Red Circle, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff. And by the way, make sure that you go and tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama, where they can find what you're watching: the best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast, none other than Tate's Take. Be sure also to follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS. And that's where basketball lives, of course. Hashtag, hashtag. So I teased it a little bit. I played around. You guys probably wondering, like, what's up with the pink at the bottom? What's happening with the optics, man? The color flow. And there's multiple reasons for that. Not only because I have a great young lady that's going to be joining us on the show today, but also because I am in a new destination for the first time, and it's very a floral city, I guess is what floor. I guess you can kind of figure that one out. Floral, Florida. I'll let you guys know about that, and I'm even wearing my little Final Four hat, trying it out for the very first time from when I was in Indy. So I'm really happy about that. Get a chance to try that thing out on camera for the first time. So without further ado, I want to get ready to bring in our guest so we could talk about some high school basketball. We're probably going to dip and dab here and there around a little bit of college, and then of course into some NBA too, because I know a lot of people had questions about Jalen Green. This is going to be the person that will be able to answer all of those questions for us. So without further ado, as I am doing my best, making my best effort to pull her up right now. There we go. Perfect. There goes my girl right there. Krysten Peak, three-level basketball analyst from Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Make sure you give her a follow on Twitter and as well as on IG. The handle is the same, at Krysten Peak, KRYSTENPEEK. That is Krysten Peak with two E's on that peak. How are you, Krysten?
Good. I love that you said I was with a Y. Like that throws everyone off. So Kristen with a Y, yes.
Yeah, no doubt. I know that can be kind of tricky for some people, but not too tricky for us. Um, let's start out with this, okay? Because before we start getting into the Allen Iverson, the showcase itself, the classic that took place in Memphis, I am in a new place right now, first time ever. Miami, Florida. Literally just got here maybe an hour ago ish, somewhere right up in that range. So, okay, have you ever been to Miami? And what was, in the event that you have, what was your experience like? What kind of trouble can I get in?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm so glad you asked this because I've only been to Miami one time
Mm.
and it was literally for a layover flight. I had like a 4 hour layover and a friend of mine that lived in Miami. I was on my way, get this, I was on my way to Argentina and then on the way
Wow.
to Antarctica to run a marathon. And so my one
Okay.
layover, like my first stop, my layover in Miami, my friend took me out. He took me to South Beach and he's like, "Oh yeah, let's go hard." And I'm like, "Dude, I have a marathon in 3 days, like in Antarctica. Like I can't go hard like that." So my only experience in Miami has been very tame. It was only, very, very, very short, but it was beautiful and I loved it. I love the people watching and that's awesome. I love that you're there.
Yeah, I love that. I love it too. So far, so good. I mean, in that first hour, you're kind of like, I'm happy to be here, but I haven't seen anything yet, so I'm still not sure what to make of it all yet, especially after you hear so many stories and whatever else, and everybody else's stories always kind of have me like, I don't know just yet. You mentioning marathon just made me really, really tired. Just mentioning marathon alone, I can't even imagine what that was like. Let me ask you this real quick, because we're going to jump around a little bit. I know we don't have a ton of time. We're not going to keep you too long. We're definitely going to talk about some basketball, but how was that experience just with the marathon and just Antarctica? Like, give me some bits and pieces because, our minds can only go so far, especially being from Michigan, can only go so far. Obviously, it relates to the cold. Obviously, I can figure that much when you think about Antarctica. But outside of that, like, what was that like? Because I can think of maybe what it could be like, but you were actually there. What was it? Anything like what you thought it might be like?
Nothing like I thought it would be. Like, I knew it would be cold, and we got on a freighter like ship in Argentina, like in Ushuaia, which is the southernest tip of Argentina. Then it took 3 days to sail to Antarctica, and you're sailing through the Drake Passage, so the water, like the whole boat is just like this, the whole time. And so like it's nothing like you would ever experience. And then when you get there, it's like the wildlife there, the penguins, they don't know anybody. So they like just like the teenager and like the younger penguins, they like come right up to you, because they don't know that you're like a human. So they just think like, oh, they're just curious, just like you're as curious as them. So there were people that were like laying down and the penguins are laying on top of them. And then you're running the marathon and like you see penguins like everywhere. Like it was literally, I probably saw more penguins in my life than I expected to see ever. And it was so beautiful, and it was so quiet and still and just pristine. It was cold, but like you knew that going into it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, outside of basketball, coolest thing I've ever done easily.
Wow, I am so envious of you right now. It is ridiculous, and yeah, that's when I'm gonna have to find some time to kind of mark off or check off on my to
Yes,
do
bucket
list.
list.
Yeah, my bucket list, my to do list or whatnot. Um, wow. Okay, so let me ask you about this then. Uh, Before we get into the Iverson Classic, there was a top five recruit as of today. Patrick Baldwin Jr. Try saying that three times fast. Committed to UW Milwaukee. I think they're just calling it Milwaukee now. Was Wisconsin Milwaukee. Chose over Duke as well as over Georgetown. What kind of player and how surprising even was this? Can people expect in their, I guess now, I think it's Horizon League? What kind of player is this team and just in general this conference going to get in? Because you know what the crazy part is, and I was thinking about this, and I'm sorry to just kind of not giving you a chance to answer just yet. But like I'm thinking, when is the last time that we saw a top five player nationally ranked that ended up playing like at a mid-major? Because I'm thinking Mitchell Robinson, but he didn't really play for them. And then maybe Charles Bassey, but he wasn't the top five. He was top 10 in that range. Larry Bird went from Indiana to Indiana State. Maybe McCurmaker, but we really didn't get a fair shot to see McCurmaker. So what says you? What kind of player are they getting in, and how unique is his decision that he made earlier today?
So I will say this, like if you would have asked me a year ago and he would have committed a year ago, it would have been surprising. But the longer it went down, the longer it went on, and the more we saw the Duke, especially the Duke recruiting class develop, and we saw just how, I mean, you saw Jalen Suggs be successful at Gonzaga, and you see Chet Holmgren commit to Gonzaga, and like he's not going to lose any sort of like draft stock, and the whole G League thing take off. And so when you have Patrick Baldwin Jr. and he's like, oh, I can play for my dad and still be all right because his dad is the head coach there. I mean, I think it was just a no-brainer. He's like, yeah, let me bring some love to UW, Milwaukee, whatever you want to call it. Let me, like, it doesn't matter where I play in terms of like social media and my draft stock, because I have a mock draft coming out tomorrow, and him committing there is no different. Like he's still like a top 5, top 6, top 7 prospect. And the only thing that's going to make that any different is if he's not successful in the mid-major league that he's playing in. But I mean, none of us see that happening. He's a great prospect. I mean, I want to say the closest comp that we have to him at the NBA level is Michael Porter Jr. And he's a better passer, a better defender than Mike Porter. And So NBA teams see that. They see how well Mike's doing with the Nuggets, a few years under his belt, and they're like, okay, yeah, we will make plans to go see UW Milwaukee play. And like, it's no problem. It's not an eye roll like, oh my gosh, he's playing for his dad. Like they're just like, all right, we will go to where the talent is, basically.
There's a guy from right around, not too far away from where I'm from, Ray McCullum, who turned down some schools to go play for his dad, Ray McCullum Sr., at the University of Detroit Mercy. And that's pretty high praise with some of the comparisons talking about Michael Porter Jr., who some people was kind of on the fence about because of the injuries and the back issues and so forth. Now we're kind of seeing some of those layers to the onion kind of unravel themselves and getting a chance to see the Michael Porter Jr. that everybody kind of thought that we would at some point. Kind of give us a brief breakdown a little bit about maybe like some of his skill set. I know you mentioned Michael Porter Jr. And how he's a better passer and so forth. What are some of those measurements? How tall is this guy? And I can imagine that, like you said, he's going to lose or drop any kind of a draft stock. And maybe even if we can look forward to some players that may be looking to, like, is this the new wave of maybe going to a mid-major school outside of like Gonzaga? Is that kind of like the new wave, like spurning some of the blue bloods?
I think so. And I mean, when you're talking about Pat Baldwin Jr., you're looking at a 6'10" to 25 wing who is great in a mismatch. He's a phenomenal passer. This is a guy that played AAU basketball with Jalen Johnson, who went to Duke and is now like a projected lottery pick in this draft. And when I say like he's dangerous in the open court, like he can handle the ball, he can obviously finish at the rim, and he can defensively guard positions 1 through 4. So if you're an NBA team, you're looking at a guy that you can plug in probably right away, no matter what your roster looks like. And he's just one of those guys where it's going to be like an easy pick for anyone, because he is someone, you don't know what you're going to get at the NBA level, because you obviously don't know, like, is he going to be turnover prone, who's faster, who's stronger than him? But he's definitely more of like the safer pick at that level because of his tangibles at the high school level and what he's going to be able to do at the college level. And in terms of like, is this a new wave? I mean, it's the G League, and then also like the new overtime team or league. I don't even know what they're calling it, because I don't know they have enough players to make their own league. It might just be their own team and they'll enter something else. But there's so many different avenues for players to go for their 1 year removed from high school. And I don't think NBA teams, they're definitely not judging or they're not criticizing any player's movement, because we've seen it with Australia and now the G League and now, like the mid-major programs. Like you can go anywhere if you are good enough, then NBA teams are going to find you. And now with social media, they know who you are before you commit. So there are definitely going to be NBA teams that are going to go see some UW Wisconsin games or Milwaukee games. Sorry.
Sure, no worries. And you know what the crazy part is? I love that we actually have all of these options that are on the table and
I do too.
available. And even you mentioning the overtime Malik, and I know that it feels like, and I don't want to speak for you by any means because you're much smarter than me and know more about this stuff than I would ever would know. But in regards to the overtime Malik and that option, from everything that I'm under the impression, paying players from ages 16 to 18 years old to be able to play, like, do you think that this is a good idea? Can this work? How will this work? Just your initial thoughts on it, and just kind of your takeaways.
I'm still skeptical. I haven't got enough information, A, from them directly, and B, from like what I've been hearing around the team. I mean, until it's set in stone and until they start getting players, I'm going to err on the side of caution and just, hope it takes off, because I want the best for these players. Like I know that they deserve to get paid if they're good enough at 16, 17, 18 years old. But they don't have a network A backing it. So I don't know who's going to watch it, and B, like, if you're saying you're only going to have 12 players, like who are you guys going to play? Like that's my big thing. It's like, you need people to play in order to get exposure for these players. So until that is revealed to us, like, I'm very, very skeptical, but I'm open-minded and I hope it happens. Like, it's a great idea. And I think, you know, like, players deserve to be paid if they're deserving at 16 and 17 years old for their name, image, and likeness and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of name, image, and likeness, and I think maybe that's one of the only ways if the NCAA probably felt like they could compete in some ways is to be able to open up and or give players an opportunity to exercise that right to be able to get something like that going. And I'm kind of concerned, being a big college basketball fan that I am, on what all of these different opportunities that are opening for these players, how the kind of effect that it's going to have on college basketball. I mean, you already have the one and done thing going on, and a lot of people feel like that ruined college basketball. Now you have international, you have G League, overtime, kind of like of all the things that that you just mentioned. Can I tell you what and I know I keep prolonging the Iverson stuff. We're definitely going to get into that, but can I just tell you what I'm so super somewhat like sad about?
Tell me.
So I have been really looking for, especially after last year where we didn't have a chance to have the Nike EYB or the Peach Jam, where we originally first met, and I happen to always be sitting right next to Krysten somehow and trying to pick her brain and look over into her answer key, look over there on her notes. But I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it this year. I got some other things that look like it's gonna come about. I'm like, dang it, I'm not gonna get my chance for 2 years in a row after like 3 or 4 years straight to sit next to Krysten. And but of course, hopefully you'll be able to join our
Yeah,
show, be
we'll
able to
talk
break some
about
of
it. I
that
mean, I'll
stuff
give you
down.
everything that I see. It's fine. Like, we
I
can
know.
still talk like you were there.
I know. It's just not the same. And I love to
I
be at
know it's
these
not the
events.
same.
And you have to tell me, because you do this stuff. Obviously, Krysten Peak, 3-level basketball analyst. This girl is good, and also got a really interesting article that's going to be coming out on tomorrow. Talk to some good basketball stuff as well for Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. You see there at the bottom of the ticker where to catch you at on Twitter as well as on IG. But um, you know, when you're not there to be able to see a player, I'm sure your brain gets picked much more than mine probably does. And my phone's ringing off the hook all the time. Like, how do you assess these players? Or because it's such a weird year, you had COVID, players wasn't playing, and some was in the gym, some weren't even allowed in the gym, and you can't really see the development of the player. And then, you know, if I don't see a player with my own two eyes personally, like up close and personal, I don't try to give too much, because on highlight tapes, I mean, listen, they could put out a highlight tape of Deshaun Tate. At least I feel like it'll be a halfway decent one at least. And all it's going to show is the good things. So, of course, I can look like I can be an All-American. But to be able to be there and see a lot of these players and these athletes perform, that's when you get the opportunity to be able to see. So I guess what I want to ask you is, uh, how important is it to be able to see these players up close and personal and be able to break down the things that they can do from what they can't do, and making sure that you're not misled based on highlight tapes, which I feel like even if you're like a 1 or a 2 star nowadays, you've even got the Twitter thing popping and you're in your final 8 for all of your commitment schools that you're going to, you know, all that type of stuff. How difficult is that space when you're trying to break down a player in their development?
No, that's a great question. And I will say this as someone who, you know, I do future mock drafts. Like, I do analysis on the college players coming up. And obviously, like, I am trying to stay in the gym as much as I can. And this was a tough year for COVID reasons and everything, but I tried to stay in the gym as much as possible. And I can say with confidence, when I look at the mock draft I'm putting out tomorrow, the reason I'm putting it out in, you know, middle of May is because I wanted to wait until I saw every single player. If they're an incoming freshman, I wanted to make sure that I saw them in person so I could vouch for their spot and see what they were doing their year in quarantine, if they got better, if they got worse. And it's a real thing. Like, the NBA guys that were in the gym at Iverson Classic, like, this is the first time that they saw this class since a year and a half, since USA Basketball in 2019. So to see Chet Holmgren versus Paolo Ventura, to see Peyton Watson for the first time, to see, you know, Nolan Hickman played really well, like, to get eyeballs on these guys instead of just like hearing what they know off social media and having to wait for their college season was very, very critical. And honestly like great for these high school kids, like who didn't have a McDonald's All-American game, who didn't have Nike Hoop Summit, who didn't have Jordan Brand. So this was like a treat for all of us. Like we didn't expect to be able to see all of these guys compete against each other this year because of COVID. And then all of a sudden, like Iverson Classic came along and it was allowed. So it was great to be in the gym. It was good to see everyone. There were a lot of pleasant surprises, and there were a lot of players that like did themselves a great service going and competing and showing the NBA guys who they are as a player.
You're starting to talk about surprises. Now we're actually going to get into the Iverson Classic. You start talking about players that have been surprising, and I want to say that this guy was a Creighton commit. Please feel free without hesitation to correct me if I'm wrong. When it comes to Tate Washington, he decommits, if I'm not mistaken, from Creighton, hasn't decided where he's going to go. This dude has been like legit blow. I mean, like I feel like there's not a hotter name that came from where he came from that made this big of a leap. I think at one point over a summer, Colin Sexton did it, and a couple other guys here and there. It was kind of spotty, but they essentially come from somewhat nowhere or lower ranked to now being like one of the hottest names on the circuit. Talk to me and to the people a little bit about Tate Washington. What makes him so special? Because this dude was just pretty much doing everything.
He has definitely been one of the players that made the biggest jumps this year in terms of like a low 4-star player to now he's going to be 5-star. He'll be a first-round draft pick if he keeps doing what he showed NBA scouts at Iverson. Like he'll definitely be a first-round pick. I would say him and Tamar Bates, who was previously committed to Texas, now he's going to Indiana. Those two players have been the biggest risers in the senior class during the COVID season in terms of just like coming out of nowhere and being incredible. I think Tamar will be more of like a 2-year player at Indiana. And next year, if we talk, we'll be talking about him as like a lottery pick. But Tate, he doesn't have great size, but he won the 3-point contest at Iverson. He has been incredible in terms of being a facilitator for other teammates, getting off shots over bigger players, and just making the right decisions. I mean, he's just like an all-around guard that when NBA guys are looking at, okay, we need a guard in this level or this spot to fill minutes, like he's the solid pick. So I think that's going to work to his advantage next year if he continues to develop. He's choosing between either Kentucky or Arizona or like his two like high ranking, like those are the two schools that he's going to pick between. And he's going to be choose next weekend. So I think it's going to be Kentucky, to be honest. And I think he can flourish there alongside Bryce Hopkins and Damian Collins, who are both there at Iverson, and just a better feel and fit than the previous Kentucky freshmen that we saw this year.
Let's jump up to the top of the rankings where you have Chet Holmgren, and I'm not sure that there's a person who hasn't seen him play just yet after all of the hype. Shame on you if you haven't seen him play just yet. But, what is it about him that maybe nobody is necessarily talking about? Because, you're going to have those people that are going to be talking about, the lack of size and strength and everything else. I mean, look, I'm 37 years old. I'm 150 pounds. I have no nerve to talk to anybody about size whatsoever. But, in regards to his skill set, we know he can shoot the ball and off the dribble, and he's got a nice handle and all this other stuff. Is there a particular part of his game that really nobody is talking about in terms of like, we know he's special, but wait until he has the opportunity to show you that he can do this consistently or whatever the case may be and really get into his bag? What is this?
I mean, right. I'll tell you this, like there's never been a high school prospect like Chet Holmgren. He's a 7'1" center, but he can handle the ball really well as a guard. He can knock down the three. He's great in the pick and pop. He makes good reads, in terms of passing off the block to his teammates. So he's the best shot blocker in America. So it's like, how do you compete with that? And the biggest thing, I would say like the biggest surprise to me about his game is how competitive and actually how tough he is. Because even though as like frail or like as his frame isn't filled out like people would want it to be. So there's obviously preconceived notions like, oh, he can't bang in the post. And I've talked to him about it. I've flat out asked him, I'm like, what do you say to the people that think you're too skinny and you can't play in the post and you can't compete with bigger and stronger players down low? And he said to me, I'd say to them, they've never seen me play a full game of basketball and they don't really know what they're talking about. Everyone that says that to me is someone on Twitter who doesn't understand the game. And I have found ways to score my entire life, no matter who I'm going up against. And that is totally true because you got Paolo Ventura, who's 240 pounds. You know, Chet is whatever, like 210. He's got 30 pounds on him. And he was finding ways like to go up under him, to get shots like fade away over him. So I don't see that being a factor at all, like at the college level, especially at Gonzaga. And at the NBA level, I mean, you're going to have people around you that are just going to help you get stronger. Like he told me, he's like, KP, I do yoga 4 days a week. And so it's not like he's just sitting there like starving himself. Like he's working on his body. It's just, some people are just built like that. Like Kevin Durant is built like that. Like Brandon Ingram is built like that. Like, so he's very serious about his future. And I don't think that like there's not a prospect like him out there. And he is my pick for number one next year for sure. Cause you can't pick against him.
Sure. No, sure thing. And I was going to say too that, I can't wait for my opportunity to be able to interview Chet Holmgren. Of course, he's probably taller than me. He has to sit down. I stand up, and he's still taller than me.
No, listen, he sits down, and his legs are like up here. Like we sit down for like I was cutting an interview.
His knees are probably higher.
I know,
than his
like
head.
I'm sitting in between him and Hunter Salas. Like this past weekend, that interview's going up tomorrow. And Chet's knees are like up to my elbows. We're like sitting down, me and Hunter, like, and I was like, okay, I have to press into this interview because it just looks so weird. Like he's just so big.
Yeah, if you think that looks weird, I think I'm gonna have to make sure that that we're both sitting down when I interview him, because if he's standing up and I'm standing up, that's gonna look totally weird. Krysten Peak, 3-level basketball analyst from Yahoo Sports and Rivals.com. Remember to find her on Twitter and on IG at Krysten Peak. Now, what I want to do, because I said I don't want to hold you too long, so I want to get into this special part of this segment, and you might remember this. I can't remember if we did this before, but it is called Quick Release. So essentially, it's just going to toss around a couple questions, for the most part, rapid fire. Feel free to elaborate on the answers if you want to, but keep them as short as possible is the idea. Of course, Quick Release, entering with this is Krysten Peak. We're going to put her on the hot seat for a little bit. Sponsored by Exotics by Curtis Smith. Look good, feel good, play great. All 100% natural products, no chemicals added. Use this stuff. I've been using it. Some of Trae Young's people introduced me to this stuff last year in Chicago at All-Star Weekend, and I haven't stopped using it since. Been able to tell a huge difference with my skin, my confidence, all that good stuff. Exoticsproducts.com is where you can find it, but not before right at the checkout. Enter in that discount code Tate's Take and get your nice little 15% off. That helps your boy out a little bit too. So, you ready to do this, Krysten?
I'm ready. Let's do it. I do this all the time with players, so I'm happy to be on the other end of it.
Oh, okay. Now I'm even a little bit excited. Let me make sure I get my logo popping up there in the top right-hand corner. Perfect. Now we got it good. All right. Raven Johnson. How special, as we know, she was opportunity to be the first female player to be able to play in the Iverson Classic Showcase with the guys, with the boys. How special is Raven Johnson for the people who haven't seen her?
She was great. I mean, she held her own. In the game, she struggled. Poor Trey Alexander had no mercy and picked her pocket a lot in the game. But during scrimmages, I mean, she told me, she's like, I'm learning so much from these guys. Allen Iverson was impressed with her. She's the first game in his Iverson Classic game, and he had a lot to say to her. So South Carolina is getting a great guard, a great playmaker, a hard worker, and someone that does not fear competition at all.
Who was the biggest surprise at the Iverson Classic?
Biggest surprise. Oh, Tyrese Hunter, point guard going to Iowa State. He was the co-MVP of the game. Someone that I didn't know a whole lot about going into the Iverson Classic. He was okay during the scrimmages, but during the game, like he played above the rim. He was kind of you know who he reminded me of, which is really funny to me because we were in his hometown, was Kennedy Chandler. He was like a Kennedy Chandler 2.0 type of player, smaller guard, but could get threes off, play above the rim, play defense, super quick in the open court. So he was one player that totally surprised me.
Which player of any of them all, who was the remember this guy's name? If you don't do anything else, remember this guy's name. Who is that guy? What's his name?
Let's say Peyton Watson. Peyton's going to UCLA, 6'8", 6'9", shooting guard out of California. Not a lot of people knew who he was, but during the two practices, and I mean, practices were 3 hours. So the end of the scrimmages, like it was the last 20, 30 minutes of practice, he was blocking Chet Holmgren. He was hitting long threes over Damian Collins, who's a 6'10" player going to Kentucky. I mean, he was kind of doing everything. Like he's super long. He's got an NBA body. And he's one of those players where people are going to be like, oh yeah. And because he plays in the Pac-10 or Pac-12 and like not a lot of East Coast, Central Coast people watch Pac-12 basketball, he's going to be one of those players next year. They're going to be like, who is this? And I think he's going to have a very, very long NBA career.
Okay, good deal. Sounds like he had one of the more impressive performances there over the weekend. Describe J.D. Davison in one word, not using athletic or athleticism.
I was just going to say athletic. Exciting. that's how he plays.
I'm good with that.
He's a very exciting player to watch. He kind of does everything. I think he played himself into, if he does well next year at Alabama, he played himself this weekend into a potential first-round draft pick. Even though he's undersized, but his athleticism is off the charts. And he won the dunk contest. He had 15 points in the game, and he just played solid the entire week.
Sounds good to me. Let's see here. Let's go with how about this? Let's go with, where do you think that Jalen Green will and should be drafted when the NBA draft rolls around?
All right. I love Cade Cunningham, and I ultimately think he'll be the number one pick.
Okay.
But I do think Jalen has a very strong case to be going number one. And I feel like if it was Jalen Green at Gonzaga instead of Jalen Suggs, he'd be the undisputed number one pick in the draft. And just the way he plays and the way he projects as a guard and how young he is. And when I went down to the G League bubble, and before that I talked to him and I said, what are you hoping to show these NBA scouts? And he's like, I'm hoping to show them that I have a complete game, that I can create for my teammates, that I can play defense. And in one of the games that I saw in the G League bubble, in the first half, one half of basketball against professionals, he had 14 points and 8 assists. And it was like literally the best half of basketball I've ever seen from Jalen Green. And so to be able to see that and know how serious he is about basketball and what he's done against pros, like I think he has the highest upside out of anybody in this draft class. And I think we'll be talking about him years to come as like a multiple NBA All-Star.
Last but certainly not least, this is my last one for you. You're a California girl, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct? On a scale of 1 to 10, with one being the worst and 10 being the best, where do you rate this animal style in and out thing? Is the burger, the fries, whatever, what have you? Where do you rate in and out in general in this? Are you an animal style girl?
I am not an animal
That's
style
a weird,
person.
and that's
Like
a
I
weird question to ask too, by the way.
no,
I
no, no. I love
apologize,
it. I love it.
but the
I love it.
people
No,
have to know.
I do not like animal style French fries from In-N-Out, but I do like In-N-Out burger, and I like, there's different things that you can do. Like you can get like grilled onions, and like there's secret sauce I'm not even into. So it's like ketchup only, grilled onions, like that sort of thing. So I respect the secret menu that In-N-Out has. And like I know every time I go, there's always like a line forever outside of In-N-Out. But do I think it's like the second coming of Jesus for fast food? No. Like I'm more than happy with like Chick-fil-A and like anywhere else. Like I don't need In-N-Out in my life.
For sure, for sure. No, and on the next one, we got to get you on here because I had so many other questions. Want to
Yeah.
talk about some Sharif Cooper and Brandon Boston, maybe his stock dropping, a little bit of Michigan's recruiting class coming up, Josh Christopher
Caleb
this year,
Houston. Yep. Yep.
Terrence Clark. I mean, all of this different stuff.
God.
But that'll be on the next one. Hopefully, we can get you to come back on and join us at some point, whether that be shortly after Nike EYBL Peach Jam. But this girl who's super, super busy, and I always admire your work ethic and your content that you put out. Make sure, because she's got the whole thing dropped. She's got stuff coming up tomorrow, and she's going to be dropping articles and mock drafts and so forth. Check her out, okay, at Krysten Peak. That is at Krysten Peek. There we go.
Yes.
Kind of a tongue twister sometimes, kind of like Tate's Take Hoops. Three-level basketball analyst for Yahoo Sports as well as Rivals. Krysten, thank you so much for joining me. Can't wait to do it again so we can talk some more basketball. And I would definitely shoot you a text and confirm with you to save me a seat right next to you in the event that I can make it to
Oh,
North Augusta,
100%.
South
I
Carolina.
would love that. Anytime. You know me, like I love talking basketball anytime, any day, any place. So it's great. I feel like I need to introduce you to the newest member of
Uh-oh.
the family. This is
Really?
this
Oh
is
my
this is
God.
Gary. He's the newest
Gary?
addition. He's
What breed
sleeping,
is
but
Gary? Hi, Gary. What breed is
say
Gary?
hi. He's like, why'd you just wake me up? He's a Cavapoo, so he's a half poodle, half Cavalier King Charles, but he's he's the latest. Like we sit and watch basketball all the time, and he's just like, oh.
Listen, that is so awesome. I am so good. I'm so good with the dogs. Just don't lick me in my face. I don't have time for that. I don't play those games. But other than that, we could be
Dude,
cool. You can sit on the couch. We could watch
honestly, he's the
basketball.
best.
We could do our thing. No, hey, listen. Congratulations on that. You got another member of the
I
family and
know.
so forth. Bring them with you to North Augusta. So I
Yes.
have.
Imagine me in the gym, like sitting with Gary. Like that would be people would be like, what? What?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is so awesome. Krysten, thank you again for joining
Thank
me.
you.
And in a couple of weeks, we'll have to check in on you and Gary so we can talk some more hoops.
Oh yeah. Perfect.
Sounds good. That is but girl, Krysten Peak, man, always does a phenomenal job coming on with us here on the show and talking quite a bit about some basketball and just in general. Look, we're gonna get into some college stuff with her after a while, some NBA stuff as well. Pick her brain. Remember to go and check out her article that she's gonna put up. You can find it on her Twitter, I'm sure, at Krysten Peak, and also on Instagram at Krysten Peak as well. That's gonna do it for us, not just for the show, but also for this segment. Quick release with Krysten Peak, sponsored by Exotics by Curtis Smith. Look good, feel good, play great. I'm selling the products. I'm a wholesaler. They're sponsoring the show, doing a phenomenal job. Go and get these products. Listen, LeBron's using them. Kyrie, KD, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Uh, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Get these products. You'll be able to tell a huge difference with your skin. You see it there at the bottom on the ticker as well. Balms and masks and gel oils and cleaners and sanitize, skin restoration, replenishment, just everything. But it's so great. All 100% natural products, uh, zero chemicals added as well. I just give you a warning. Tons of positive energy and just confidence instilled within these products as well. And make sure put your discount code in there right at checkout. Make sure you do that part first. Make sure you do that before you end up paying for it. Tate's Take, TATESTAKE. This stuff is life changing, not just game changer. This is a life changing product right here. Get your 15% when you put in Tate's Take there in the discount card. They'll hook you up. Body soaps, exfoliation, smelling good, natural. There's a huge difference, people, between Palmer's cocoa butter and regular cocoa butter. People know that. Trust me, mark my word. I wasn't the biggest. I don't put anything on my skin. I don't just put anything on my skin. Listen, make sure that you go and do that. You'll be able to tell the difference. Give it about 2-3 weeks, be able to develop a good feel. You'll feel phenomenal. I can't even tell you. It's one of those things you just gotta go and do. Do yourself a favor, do your skin a favor, go and invest in the products, exoticsproducts.com. Lots of grooming products that make for really good. Father's Day is coming up. If you're a little bit late to the Mother's Day thing, it's not too late. Feel free to go on there and get some stuff for women as well as for men. Um, and if you got sensitive skin, they've got pure products as well. That's no fragrance added as well. So I'm not gonna go on and on and on about it, but I can go on and on about it because it's just that good of a product. So spa treatment and all that good stuff, facials, all the good stuff. So go and check it out. Again, 15% off when you put Tate's Take there into the discount code. That's gonna do it for us and wrap it up. Here in Miami, I'm gonna go try and find me a drink out of a coconut somewhere, get something with a nice little umbrella in it. Maybe find me somebody that can just fan me or something. It's as hot as I don't know what outside. I'm telling you, you could probably fry eggs and bacon out there on the concrete. Appreciate everybody for joining the show. I see my dude Al, Al, hi man, appreciate you for joining the show as well. You can see he chimed in over there on Facebook. Great show. Thank you so much for your contributions to the show, as well as my dude Sage Alvarez. Fire, that heat, man. I feel like it's a ton of fire outside right now down here in Miami. So somebody hit me on the text, man, or DM me. Hit me on the Twitter at Tate's Take Hoops. Tell me what kind of trouble I can get into down here in the MIA. At Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS. Go and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast already, do yourself a favor. You don't have to be waiting and scrolling through, or you get notifications to your phone whenever we go live. You never know who you're going to get as a guest here on this show to talk about some really, really good basketball as well. So I do appreciate all you guys for chiming in. Make sure you go and tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama, tell your friends, tell your enemies where they find the best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast that is none other than Tate's Take. Appreciate you guys for joining me for episode number 79. And last but certainly not least, appreciate Krysten as well for joining us as a guest on the show. I'll talk to you guys for episode 80 that's going to be coming up. And you know that we got some special stuff coming up for the NBA playoffs. Yep, we're going to be broadcasting live each night after the last game of the night. So make sure you keep your eyes and your ears open for that. Appreciate you. Talk to you in a minute. Bye.